There is but one game that will make any and every hardcore Sega Dreamcast fan break out in a cold sweat, and its name is Shenmue. It was billed as the most interactive and immersive game of its time. Beginning life as a Sega Saturn game starring Virtua Fighter characters, Shenmue blossomed into a massive 16-chapter epic created and produced by Yu Suzuki, a man best known for some of Sega's most memorable arcade hits, such as Outrun, Afterburner, and Virtua Cop. Shenmue was Suzuki's magnum opus, and Sega put all of its weight behind the game. Until it was beaten by Grand Theft Auto IV in 2008, Shenmue was the single most expensive game the industry had ever produced, costing over $70 million to create. Today, 10 years after the launch of the Sega Dreamcast and around 9 years since the game was first released, it's clear that Shenmue did not set the world on fire. But ask any ardent Sega fan and they will tell you, Shenmue was amazing. But was it amazing enough to justify its $70 million price tag? No! Shenmue follows the story of Ryo Hazuki in 1980s Japan. As Ryo arrives home one day, he bears witness to his father, Iwao Hazuki, doing battle with a man named Lan Di. Lan Di is seeking an ancient artifact called the Dragon Mirror. After Ryo's father reveals its hidden location in order to spare his son's life, Lan Di murders Iwao in front of Ryo's very eyes. This sparks Ryo to hunt down Lan Di and exact his revenge, while simultaneously learning the secret of why the Dragon Mirror was so important to him. The first Shenmue game is considered only Chapter 1 of Ryo's planned 16-chapter quest, and it involves raising enough money to leave Japan and travel to Hong Kong, the last known place that Lan Di was seen. Shenmue 2 picks up as Ryo docks in Aberdeen, following him through Chapters 3, 4, and 5 of the Shenmue storyline. Over the course of the series, we learn that Lan Di is one of several high-ranking members of the Qiyu Men, a powerful Chinese crime syndicate. The Dragon Mirror and its counterpart, the Phoenix Mirror, are to bring about the resurrection of the Qing dynasty, an ancient Chinese rule known for their tyrannical and barbaric practices. Though the story begins grounded in reality, towards the end of Shenmue 2, the game begins to hint at concepts like destiny and the mystical arts, suggesting Lan Di sought the mirrors for the otherworldly power that they possess. Unfortunately, because no games were ever produced after Shenmue 2, not much else is known beyond this point. Though Sega and Yu Suzuki coined a new genre for the game called Full Reactive Eyes Entertainment, Shenmue is primarily a 3D adventure game with an overbearing emphasis on immersion. As Ryo, your primary goal is playing detective as you gather clues about your father's murder and Lan Di's whereabouts. This means talking with people on the street, asking them questions about the day of the murder, and following up on any leads. The world in Shenmue is governed by a clock, just like in real life, and as you roam around cities, day will eventually turn to night. If it gets too late, Ryo will be forced to go home and get some rest. The clock plays into more than just a graphical effect, though. If you make an appointment to meet somebody at a specific time and you get there early, you must wait for them to arrive. This plays a fairly large role in the game, as certain locations are only available during certain times of the day. Ryo will typically wake up before most shops open in the morning, and seedy locations such as bars are only open late at night. Should Ryo find himself in a bad situation, the game usually presents the player with one of two ways to deal with it. the now famous Quick Time event, which involves watching a cutscene and pressing a button when prompted to, or a more traditional fighting game engine reminiscent of games like Virtua Fighter. Though it'll be hours before you see any of this stuff in the first Shenmue, Shenmue 2 ups the ante considerably, throwing you into multiple encounters within 20 minutes of stepping off the boat. And it's these parts that really help liven up the slower parts of the game. Between appointments, Ryo can waste time and money at the local video arcade playing classics like Outrun and Afterburner, practice his martial arts in empty parking lots, seek out side quests, or do part-time jobs for extra money. Even with all of these distractions, however, you'll occasionally find yourself with spare time to kill and nothing to do. All of this is done in the name of immersion. Shenmue is paced this way to give the game a sense of reality. To intentionally make parts of your game boring strictly for the sake of realism is a bold move, and depending on the type of person you are, this will make or break Shenmue for you. Shenmue 2 makes strides to avoid these boring moments by including a feature to fast forward to an appointed time, but there's simply no avoiding the tedium of a part-time job involving moving crates. But for those who really understand Shenmue and what it is trying to do, the game provides an unparalleled sense of immersion. Just like real life, there are hundreds of people that populate Shenmue's towns and cities, and each character looks and sounds unique, though most of them obviously have no reason to talk to you.
I'm sorry, but I don't have time to talk right now.
Likewise, the world is stocked with thousands of objects for Ryo to interact with, allowing you to look in places that most games explicitly ignore, even if they don't contain anything you can use. Even today, there are few games that offer anything close to this amount of detail. All of Shenmue's mechanics work towards the singular ideal that you aren't just playing as Ryo Hazuki, you are Ryo Hazuki, seeing and experiencing every exciting or mundane moment the world has to offer. It's this unflinching dedication to immersion and realism that was one of Shenmue's many undoings. Though the game was only on the 5th of 16 planned chapters, Shenmue and its sequel did not sell anywhere near enough to justify its ridiculous production costs, and Sega was already in enough financial trouble with the PlayStation 2 digging a grave for the Dreamcast. In the end, Shenmue's intimate sense of immersion became a double-edged sword. All of those who became so heavily invested in living the life of Ryo Hazuki would never see the story get proper closure. Lan Di would go unpunished, and the fate of the two mirrors would be left a mystery. Perhaps it was for the best. To many people, Shenmue was simply paced too slowly, and by the time Shenmue 2 made an effort to streamline the game mechanics, the damage had already been done. But regardless of how many people appreciated the goals Shenmue was trying to accomplish, it was these kinds of daring, weird games that had come to define the Sega Dreamcast. And you'll have a hard time finding any game that matches Shenmue in tone, style, and pure ambition.
Ah, good.